Welcome everyone. Today we're discussing digital libraries, and I want to start with a question before we even get into the content. What do you think a digital library actually is? Is it just a website with PDFs, a database you search from your laptop, or is it something more? By the end of this lecture, I think your answer will be a lot richer than when we started. Let's get into it. Let's move to our overview slide. The contemporary academic library has fundamentally transformed. It's no longer just a place that holds things, it's a place that enables things. Think about what that shift means in practice. Today's digital library sits at the intersection of four major functions: access and preservation, which have always been core, but now also computable archives and ethical stewardship. Computable archives means scholars aren't just reading documents anymore. They're running machine learning models on them, mining text, visualizing patterns across thousands of items at once. That's a radically different relationship to knowledge than pulling a book off a shelf. And ethical stewardship, that's about who gets represented in these collections and how, something we'll return to in depth. Keep these four pillars in mind as a framework throughout this lecture. Now here's something crucial that doesn't always get enough attention in library education. Not all digital libraries are the same, and they shouldn't be. The way an institution frames its digital library is deeply tied to its mission, and understanding that alignment is essential for anyone going into this field. So let's look at three major institutional types, and how each one thinks about digital libraries differently. At R1 research universities, your large doctoral granting institutions, the digital library is fundamentally infrastructure. It's built for scale, complexity, and computational power. Take the University of Cincinnati. Their Catalyst model is a great example. They're not just digitizing materials, they're activating them through machine learning and data visualization. Or look at the University of Wyoming's DIVE team, which coordinates data repositories, distinctive collections, and multimedia production under one roof. The key phrase here is computable archives. These institutions expect collections to be interrogated by algorithms, not just browsed by humans. That changes everything, from how you format metadata to how you architect your storage systems. Now try to reflect on this point that if you were joining a digital initiatives team at an R1, what technical skills do you think you'd need beyond traditional librarianship? Now contrast that with small liberal arts colleges, or SLACs. Here, the digital library is understood through a pedagogical lens. Institutions like Gettysburg and Lafayette aren't asking, how do we build scalable infrastructure? They're asking, how do we teach students to think like digital scholars? There's a beautiful concept here: process over product. At a SLAC, the journey matters. Students document uncertainty. They show their iteration. The messy, exploratory parts of research are treated as legitimate scholarly acts, not just the polished final product. Digital humanities at these schools becomes what they call a digital liberal arts. It doesn't just add tech skills, it rethinks how curriculum is designed. And then we have community colleges and specialized institutions. And honestly, this is where some of the most meaningful digital library work is happening. Think about Auraria Library in Denver or the Robert W. Woodruff Library serving Atlanta's historically black colleges and universities. These institutions frame their digital libraries as tools for democratizing access and preserving community identity. We're talking about Chicano newspapers, civil rights archives, HBCU institutional records, oral histories, collections that would simply not exist in digital form without this deliberate institutional commitment. The digital library here isn't a research tool, it's a form of cultural reclamation, and that's a powerful thing. Let's pause on this comparison table for a moment because it crystallizes something important. R1s are focused on computable archives and scalability. Liberal arts colleges are focused on collaborative pedagogical hubs. Community colleges and HBCUs are focused on identity, equity, and community memory. Same digital library concept, radically different strategic orientations. And none of them is wrong. They're each responding to their community's needs. This is a really important takeaway for you as future practitioners. Know your institution's mission before you propose any digital initiative. Let's move on to another aspect that covers the foundational practices that cut across all institution types. Think of digital stewardship as a life cycle, four interconnected phases. First, digitization and format diversification. We've moved well beyond scanning text documents. Today's digital libraries are capturing 3D models, photogrammetry of artifacts, biological specimen scans. The University of Wyoming, for instance, has over 1,300 3D models on Sketchfab, vertebrate skulls, paleontological casts, full sculptures. Second, inclusive metadata and reparative description. This is about auditing legacy catalogs for harmful language, terminology that reflected historical biases, and replacing it with community-centered, accurate description. We'll return to this in a coming slide in this lecture. Third, active preservation. This means OAIS-compliant workflows, fixity checks, format migration, long-term persistence strategies. Digital files are fragile. Without active management, they degrade or become inaccessible. And fourth, equitable access, open access policies, ADA compliance, privacy protection. Access isn't just about having the collection, it's about making sure people can actually reach it. Here's a trend worth paying close attention to. Institutions across North America are migrating away from proprietary systems toward open source platforms. The most common example? Moving from CONTENTdm to tools like Islandora, DSpace, or Fedora. Why? Frustration with vendor lock-in, inaccurate search results, and high licensing costs. These migrations are expensive and labor-intensive, but they pay off in flexibility and community-supported development. This is a decision you may face in your career, and it's never purely technical. It's financial, political, and strategic. On the instructional side, notice how different the models are. Gettysburg runs an intensive 8-week digital humanities fellowship, immersive, cohort-based, treating research as full-time work. McMaster's Sherman Center takes the opposite approach, a massive open workshop hub with 60-plus resources covering everything from Adobe Illustrator to Python and R. Both models work for different communities. Let's look at the major platforms in the field, because platform selection is one of the most consequential decisions a digital library team makes. DSpace is the workhorse for institutional repositories, mature, OAIS compliant, ready to deploy. Fedora is more of a developer framework, ideal when you have complex data models and technical staff. Islandora combines Fedora with a Drupal CMS layer, giving you both flexibility and a usable interface. On the proprietary side, CONTENTdm still has strong vendor support and WorldCat integration, which matters for discoverability. For digital exhibits and storytelling, Omeka is the go-to. It's narrative-focused and user-friendly. And for preservation workflows specifically, Archivematica automates the ingest process to OAIS standards. The bottom line, there's no one-size-fits-all platform. Your choice should match your use case, your staffing capacity, and your long-term maintenance plan. Beyond repositories, digital libraries support an entire ecosystem of scholarly tools, and being literate in this ecosystem is increasingly expected of digital librarians. For mapping and spatial analysis, ArcGIS, QGIS, story maps. For text analysis, Voyant Tools, AntConc, Python. For visualization, Gephi, Tableau, Flourish. For digital storytelling, Timeline.js, Scalar, WordPress. And for data cleaning, OpenRefine is practically indispensable. You don't need to be an expert in all of these, but you need to know what they do and when to recommend them to a researcher who comes to you for help. Here is a point for reflection. Think about a research question in your own field. Which 2 or 3 of these tools might be most useful, and why? Digital library instruction has evolved enormously. We've moved from static resource guides, here's a list of databases, to genuine co-teaching models where librarians are embedded partners in the curriculum. The range of models is impressive. McMaster's asynchronous online catalog lets students build skills at their own pace. USM credentials, digital competencies with a formal DH badge. McGill and Gettysburg embed librarians directly into disciplinary courses, and fellowship programs treat digital research as professional work, with real stakes and real audiences. The common thread across all of them: sustained engagement beats one-shot instruction every time. This is one of the areas where library ethics becomes most visible and most urgent. Clemson's inclusive description team is a benchmark worth studying. They've built a cross-departmental process that includes individual positionality statements, full collection audits for harmful language, public-facing reparative statements, and user-facing forms where people can flag offensive content. That last one is significant. It opens an ongoing dialogue with the community the library serves. On accessibility, with updated ADA title, two regulations now explicitly applicable to higher education, this isn't optional. ADA-compliant vendor requirements, universal design for learning principles, regular interface audits. These are baseline expectations, not aspirational goals. The hashtag DLF Teach Toolkit, developed by the Digital Library Federation, offers peer-reviewed lesson plans covering everything from data visualization to decolonizing practices. If you haven't looked at it, add it to your resource list. Now let's be honest about where the field is struggling, because no honest survey of digital libraries is complete without this conversation. 4 challenges stand out. First, the invisibility of digital labor. Metadata professionals and systems administrators often work in silos, and their contributions go unrecognized. When digital transformation reshapes institutional structures, real people's professional lives are affected. That matters. Second, zombie projects. Grant-funded DH initiatives go live, funding expires, and the project lingers, technically operational but unmaintained. The field needs sustainable maintenance models built into projects from day one, not bolted on later. Third, AI ethics. Generative AI introduces genuine risks: hallucination, accuracy problems, automation of scholarly labor. Digital libraries need to engage with AI critically, both in using it responsibly and in teaching researchers to evaluate AI-generated content with appropriate skepticism. And fourth, the ongoing digital divide. If your sophisticated digital collections require high-speed broadband and expensive hardware, you've reproduced the very inequality you claim to be solving. Free Wi-Fi, public computing, and open formats aren't extras. They're essential. Final reflection point here. Which of these 4 challenges do you think is the most urgent, and what's one concrete thing a digital library team could do to address it? Let's bring this all together. The synthesis here is clear. Digital library work is a field in productive tension: ambition versus sustainability, innovation versus equity, scalability versus community care. The 4 takeaways that cut across everything we've discussed. Platform choice is strategic, not merely technical. Description is an ethical practice. Pedagogy must be embedded, not episodic. And sustainability requires planning from day one. And ultimately, the digital library is something far greater than a managed collection of files. It's civic and epistemic infrastructure. It's a research laboratory, a teaching environment, a community memory, and an ethical practice, all at once. The architecture of digital scholarship is not merely technical. It is fundamentally humanistic, political, and relational. That's the lens I want you to carry with you into every digital library decision you make in your career.